Hi guys, and welcome back. My name's Daniel, CEO of Link My Books here. Today I have with me Steve, who is an Amazon seller and a pretty big one. And we're going to talk to him about his experience before Link My Books, with Link My Books, and what he thinks of it. And probably get some good tips along the way about being a big Amazon seller. So, Steve, can you just tell the audience a little bit about your background and how you got into Amazon selling?
Sure. Yeah. I have been selling on Amazon for about 5 years, maybe a little bit longer. Before that, I was into all kinds of SEO and just prior to that, I'm actually a chartered accountant myself. So I was a SEMA trained accountant, qualified, and then saw the light and started the entrepreneurship after that. Yeah.
Cool. I didn't actually know you were an accountant.
Yeah.
So that's how you keep us on our toes, isn't
it? That's right. Everything comes with a. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I don't even need this software. I know what I'm doing, but no, really, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So without disclosing too much, do you want to maybe give an idea of the sort of categories that you sell in and how you chose those categories?
Yeah. I'm in health and home. I know pretty much as generic as it can get. Selling in US, UK, across but pan EU and Japan as well as eBay and WooCommerce and just about everywhere else that we can sort of get a relatively easy footprint into the e-commerce world using Amazon as the massive main driver. Just picking the categories is my general strategy on Amazon has always been just be very much led by the product and the opportunity. So I don't particularly care what the product is. If I think that there's an angle or an avenue that I can make to be able to convert better, to be able to rank and obviously make a profit on any line, then that's what I'll do. And then over time, just rolling it over and over and over again. So I have a success with a black pen, then I'll maybe try a blue pen and a red pen, and I'll go back to the manufacturer and see what else they can do. And it's just very much that same strategy, just rinsed and repeated for years and years and years. And then here we are.
Yeah. That's funny actually, because that is pretty much exactly what my strategy was as well when I was an Amazon seller. And I always used to get a bit of jip for it, to be honest. People would say like, oh, you need to build up a brand, man. You need to have like products that all link together so that people can buy one product and then also buy the other product at the same time. And I couldn't have disagreed more. I was like, well, I'm an Amazon buyer, and I don't go to Amazon and buy something and then just because I bought that, I then look at their store and buy other things from them. I search for what I want and I buy the first result or the second result. So flipping that on its head and becoming a seller, why don't I just have loads of products? And as long as they rank in the first 3 or 4 results, then I'm going to sell loads. It doesn't matter whether they're connected or not. So
I'm down with that 100%. It's not something you can be quite so proud of. I think that's maybe where it comes from. Like if you're selling these random products, so there's no real link between them. I mean, we have like a brand that ties them together, but really there's no value in that brand. And I think like when you're selling it and telling you're telling your mom what you do, it's not quite as compelling to tell her that you're selling widgets and wadgets rather than like some coherent home and care brand that's going to transcend the UK and And I understand it.
Yeah,
it's pragmatism.
Yeah, and I think that there's a little bit of that, and I also think that maybe it sort of comes in later on if you're looking to exit, in terms of the buyers out there maybe would look a bit more preferably on businesses where they have sort of a bit of a brand, so that they can then expand out onto the likes of Shopify and etc.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's currently where you are at the moment, isn't it? You're looking to exit your business.
Yeah, looking to exit the business. So basically following that strategy that I've had, have effectively built up, if it was the pens, we now have a portfolio of pens across four different brands. And so went to market a couple of months ago. So we're sort of in the midst of that process at the moment. So fingers crossed we'll have some positive outcomes in the next couple of months. But nice. Don't know yet.
And so in terms of when you're having those conversations with those buyers or potential buyers, has the fact that you don't have sort of like a really firm brand. Has that ever come into it? Was that just my imagination from when I talked to them?
It's not so much. Everybody likes a brand over a non-brand, so that's definitely true. I think that I've got some maybe 3 or 4 standout products, out of I have about 90 ASINs in total, and those 3 or 4, when they're in a group of say 10 or 15, it definitely gives an illusion of a brand. And I think that the buyers can look at it and say, there's enough here that we can perhaps make it into an off Amazon brand themselves. So I'm not going to them with a solution that's like a packaged up brand, but they may be looking at it saying, what I see here, I can turn into something off Amazon. Although my instinct is that really the aggregators as of today, November 2021, they're looking at the business as an on Amazon business primarily. They want to do better than what I'm doing on Amazon first.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that the aggregators that have popped up are all interested in it mainly being on Amazon. I know we work with a couple of them and refer people to them, and they say that their criteria is like 90% FBA. They don't even want just Amazon; they want solely through fulfilled by Amazon for obvious reasons. If they've got loads of merchant fulfilled stuff, they now have to employ someone to start shipping that. So it is a good business model at the end of the day, FBA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that's a little bit about you, and thank you very much for that. I'm sure that's going to be quite interesting for the audience, actually. It's definitely interesting for me. So I think what I would like to move on to next is to talk about when you think about your accounting and bookkeeping for all of your e-commerce stuff. Before you found Link My Books, what did that look like? What was the process like? How long did it take you, and who was involved?
So I've always ran my business very lean. So I have a bookkeeper that I hired when we were very small, and the bookkeeper has basically been doing all the work for me. And I think as the business grown and the number of transactions grew, the level of insight into Amazon was never really part of her job. So she never really reported those numbers back to me in a meaningful way. So what we used to do was we'd take the Amazon payout, the settlement, and then we'd just do broad VAT calculations for the UK. So, for example, if we received $10,000, then we make the assumption that 20% of that was vatable, full stop, and then the rest of it we would then on the Amazon statement just have a look at where those fees are. So, how much of that is referral fee, FBA fee, and just a very, very top line split separation of the revenues down to that settlement figure. And we would do that just on a cash basis. So we'd receive perhaps over the different regions, maybe have two different Amazon accounts, so 28 different settlements in a month. Some of those will straddle the month end. So we'd have perhaps 3 or 4 days in one month, and then the 2-week settlement, so 11 days in the following month. And that meant that the P&L was always very wonky. It was always you could look at the year as a whole and be relatively comfortable in what your profit figure was, but there was no real it wasn't a useful analytics tool, my financial accounts. So I just used a different management account software, the likes of Managed by Stats, Sellerboard, and things like that. They drive the management accounts. They drive the decisions about how the business is run, and the financial accounts were just solely a tool to calculate what my tax bill will be at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think the downside of doing cash-based accounting is exactly as you say. It's that when you do have a settlement that spans 2 calendar months, and you're basically saying that when the payment was received, that's when I'm going to account for it. Right. You've got some of your sales and fees from that. Some months you'll have two payments landing at the bank, and some months you'll have 3. So that's obviously going to skew the profitability in the P&L, and it's not going to give you really a true picture of where the business is.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that is obviously a disadvantage of using cash-based. And I think as your business grows, most businesses will move across to accrual anyway. And I think, if I remember rightly, that's why you ended up coming to us, wasn't it?
That's right. So we had, is as part of the if you like, the listing process when I'm looking to sell the business, and they ask that the buyers are asking for, or we anticipate that they're going to ask for a set number of years of financial accounts. So when I export, I use Xero. So when I export my financial accounts from Xero, it almost is utterly meaningless. You can see that it's a profitable company, but if you want to say, well, where's the trend of growth? Is it between August and December? And you look at it and it's like, well, I can see that it's looking like it might be going up, but then perhaps you might have had in that mix, November might have been almost a loss. And maybe we'll come on to cost of goods, which is the main issue. So it was that movement to accrual based accounting was the absolute goal for when I was looking for some software to be able to restate the financial accounts for the past 3 years.
Yeah, no, I can see how that would be difficult for a buyer to then see if it is an upward trend or if it is, because if it is just sort of like going up and down all the time based on whether you've got 2 payouts in a month or 3 payouts in a month, and when you're selling the quantity that you're selling, then those payouts can be quite considerable, and then it can really skew the data. So it could make it difficult for a buyer to see the upward trend overall. So yeah, I can imagine. Plus, I think it's not just accrual accounting, but also when you go down to the level of detail that something like Link My Books does, where you can then break down the sales by tax region, and you can split out your fees by type, and you can see all your refunds. It allows you to get like a bit of a better insight into your business, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So you can in My Books we could select the accounts or create new accounts depending on what I want the P&L to look like. So, for example, I wanted to separate out advertising costs, so it's below so I move it out of cost of gross profit figure. And because it's being posted to a separate nominal account, a separate account in the financial accounts, that's really easy to do. Whereas previously, it was all rolled into Amazon fees. So then when I need to then present that as present that to the buyers, which I never did because it would have been meaningless.
Yeah.
They want to know, well, how much are you actually paying on advertising? And actually, it's a really interesting point because I never used my management account software like Manage My Stats and Sellerboard and those. I never used those to really track the overall trend of PPC. But then after using Link My Books, it was just so obvious. Oh, wow, I'm really spending more than what I thought I was, by maybe like 20, 30% more. And the trend was really, really aggressively high. And it's an insight that is really obvious when you look at your P&L for like over a year. But prior to that, it was just something that I would never really occur to me to even consider looking at, because I'm always looking at this granular ASIN by ASIN, day by day profitability. But then when you see those big macro trends in your business, it makes you think, oh, right, okay, maybe I need to take focus away from there and move onto social or whatever it might be. But that's the benefit of having accurate financial accounts, that it was never really a priority before.
Yeah. So I suppose if previously when you were doing it in your Xero through your bookkeeper and they were just putting it all in as fees, then I think the other problem from that could be that when the buyer then comes to look at that, fees could mean that they are just standard fees that can't be optimized. So they are your FBA fees and your seller fees, and that's just you're given. When you sell that much product, this is how much fees you'll get. Whereas advertising fees are optimizable. So if you're separating those out, and then it shows that like 50% of those fees are from advertising, then there's an opportunity for them to go after and further optimize that and make a better, more profitable business out of it. So I think it's obviously I'm going to agree. And I think that it is a good idea to separate out all those things, but it's not something that is difficult either. When you're using Link My Books, like, we already do that for you because it makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, and I think, am I right in thinking that you also turned on the tracking codes feature within Link My Books?
Yeah.
So you can then split your P&L by a marketplace. Have you found that useful?
Yeah, so that's it's something that it was actually quite difficult to do. It's a very simple concept, but using different tools, it's actually very difficult to get a P&L by marketplace. So by that I mean, how are we performing in Germany, Italy, France, Spain, United States? So of course the P&L for the year that you look at is consolidated across all the regions. So it's very easy to turn on. I think you actually turned it on for me, just to select the different regions. And then in Xero, then I can just go in and I can say, right, give me just the P&L for the UK, and effectively anything then that's been tagged as UK is this, if you like, a gross profit figure just for the UK, which is really, really good. And it is one of those things that all the buyers have asked for. That if I hadn't had it there, it would have just been very manual reporting. So exporting all the reports, building it all up, but having it there, again, it's just so easy to be able to, like, okay, here's the UK, here's all the different regions, and then just to know that it's all going to reconcile back, rather than having to do it and then do your checks is very useful.
Yeah, I know, and that feature we've had for a long time now, but that actually came off the back of some feedback from an accountant who said it would be good if we could split out the revenue and the fees and everything by marketplace, so that we can then see how profitable each one is. And it was a really easy change for us to make. So we made that, and I think that it gives a lot of power to the business owner to be able to not just see the P&L split by marketplace, but to be able to go into a bit more detail and say, like, right, okay, if I look at my refunds compared to sales for Germany, and I look at my refunds compared to sales for the UK, I can see that Germany is a lot worse for refunds. Why is that? Yeah. And this actually happened to me firsthand when I was using Link My Books while still running my Amazon business. That I then looked into that and realized that all I needed to do was add German text to the packaging of the product, which I, believe it or not, hadn't done yet. And then a few months later, once that stock trickled through, I could see that the refund rate did actually come down. So without knowing that, I wouldn't have put that text in place, and I would have still been getting higher refund rates. So it's not just about producing financial statements for the sake of it. It is allowing you to then take a little bit of a deeper dive into your business and see some high-level, low-hanging fruit, really, to be able to change. So, that's cool. So just taking a step back then, so before you used Link My Books, first of all, how did you actually come across us?
I knew it was a requirement for the buyers to have an accurate P&L. So I'm then scouting around to try and find something that can link my books to Amazon. So the usual, like Googling, like, how can I do X and Y? How can I do X and Y? And then there are a number of like names that kept on reappearing, of which yours was one of them. And then I went through them all. I spoke to some different people, yourself included, and then it came down to the main thing is, do I have confidence that there's going to be a level of support there? With some of the other ones, one of the other big players, I didn't feel like that was there, particularly for some of the prices of the software. It wasn't really what I wanted. Yeah, and then the core issue was I wanted to get on a phone with somebody, and just say, hey, does this look right for you? In regards to the European VAT, because that was a big worry of mine, that I'm selling this business, and if there's anything that's non-compliant, I just wanted to be on the ball. Yeah. And as it happened, like, although everyone I've spoke to at Link My Books has been, hey, listen, it's up to you to come out with, for you to do your own research, and which I did do. Having that, this is how it's posted, and a little bit of a background and explanation was so beneficial. To just be confident. So basically, to answer your question, it was Google, and then a lot of talking to you guys before making a decision.
And I think it is hard for us to, we do go as close to that line as possible to be able to assist users in the technical implementation of tax rates. But in terms of giving tax advice, that's just not something we can do, because unless we were actually like established as your accountant, wouldn't really be in a position to do that. And at the end of the day, we are a software, and we can't really know everything about everyone's businesses that we're working with. But what we do to try and help that situation is we have a pretty intuitive system, which I'm sure you'll agree. And we have sets of default tax rates based on questions that we ask you. But it is ultimately up to you to double check that those tax rates are fit for your business. Now, I know that probably 95% of the people who go through our tax wizard will accept all the defaults. and their accountant will agree with them. But it is still ultimately the business owner's responsibility to just make sure that those things are correct, because everyone's business is different. Like some people have flat rate and some people have zero rate products. So sometimes the default rates don't apply and you have to just make a tweak.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it's interesting to find out you found out through Google. That's a pretty typical route, I think. And then actually hopping on the phone with people, I enjoy that as well. From both ways. So now if we move forward to when you actually have Link My Books, so thinking about that, your bookkeeper spent lots of time doing this manually previously, and it was all going in as sort of cash-based accountant and wasn't really providing you with the level of detail that both buyers needed and also not really giving you great insights into your business. So when you started using Link My Books, we've already sort of touched on it, so I sort of know what the answer is, but that improved, I guess.
Yeah, so it's having a useful P&L for the financial accounts, and actually and a profit figure that you can track for the first time. So it's actually been, I mean, I've only been using it for maybe 3 months or so now, but now as we approach the end of November, in my mind is, all right, I wonder how we're going to do November versus October. Like I had a really good month in October, and I've never really thought to track right the way back to the financial account. So there is some, it's very obvious, but it's also quite useful. So I'm going through now when I see my financial accounts and I look at it and I say, oh, maybe I've spent money on software that I wouldn't have normally done, and I'm being able to see it there. It makes me think, do I need that? Because that was 50 quid or $100 or whatever that I might not have needed. So there are practical applications to seeing the finances month on month, which I didn't have before. So yeah, so definitely feeling really feeling a benefit of it.
Yeah. And in terms of the amount of time, I know you've only been using it for 3 months, but if you're thinking about moving forwards, how much time you're going to spend on sort of synchronizing all of your Amazon and eBay stuff versus how much time your bookkeeper used to spend, do you think there's going to be a time saving?
I think there will definitely be a time saving for the so because it's just clicking a button to send the settlement through. I think that perhaps beforehand, I don't know that she was spending that long. I think maybe it might have taken a couple of hours, maybe more, actually, because she has to go through every single settlement that we've received to work it back. And I said there was maybe 28 a month. So maybe it would have been a good day's work right now. It will be much less, maybe like a half an hour, maybe an hour. She wants to go back and check things manually just to verify everything's right. But just on the issue of time, I probably will be an edge case because I've used Link My Books to go right the way back to 2018 to restate all of my accounts on an accrual basis from then. Now, if you're talking about doing that task manually, I mean, it still took me time with Link My Books because everything has to be checked and I have to understand everything inside out. So not that it's an easy task to do to restate your accounts that long. But if I was to do that manually, then we're talking months of work.
And I think that is a pretty typical picture, actually, that on a month-to-month basis, people will spend 1 day doing it. If they're doing it right, of course. Some people will just dump it in as a revenue figure, but that's not correct. And then I think when you start using Link My Books, a few clicks, like you say, a few clicks, 20 minutes, and you've reconciled everything. So it is definitely a time saver on a month-to-month basis, but also it's pretty typical that people then realize that some of the stuff they've done previously is not right. And so they want to go back and they want to replace it. And then that's also possible. So you can go back 2 years if you wanted. I think you went even back even further, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it's possible to do and go back and replace and often save a bit of tax along the way if you've got that wrong. So yeah, that's good to know. Good to know. And so that's before Link My Books, how you found Link My Books, and then life sort of with Link My Books. Is there anything that you would say to other Amazon and eBay sellers out there would you recommend Link My Books to them?
Oh, definitely. Like if you're a relatively large seller, or if you're a smaller seller and you want to get to know your financial accounts and really understand what's driving your profitability, then you need to have those financial accounts correct. And it was I've not had that for a number of years, and now I'm looking at it saying, oh, what are you doing? Like, it's not that much of a job to fix it and have it done right. So I'm big time recommending it, and already have recommended it to a few friends. Yes, I'm quite bullish on definitely having accurate financial accounts in the future, which sort of seems obvious when you say it out loud, but yeah, it's definitely been a massive benefit to me.
Yeah, no. Oh, that's really good to hear. And thank you for the recommendations as well to your friends. That's always good. I think word of mouth with financial type products is often the best form of marketing. A lot of people look a little bit skeptically upon a new software tool and what they're going to do with my data. And I think that when someone's used it and then they give a recommendation, it's definitely the best form of marketing for us. So
yeah, cool. Oh yeah, welcome.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's pretty much all my questions that I had for today. So unless you have any questions for me.
No, nothing. I think you ask your support team who are always there in the live chat. I think they all know me inside out by now. So ask them just about every single question imaginable. So, but now they're free. I have no more questions. We're done now. We are just down to one click now, so we'll be fine. Yeah. No more questions on my side.
Yeah. No, well, that's absolutely fine. I think that again, that's a pretty typical journey for users. They'll come in and they've got lots of questions because it's a new process. And then once they understand it, and you can even put it on automation. I'm not sure whether you've seen that yet, but you can, instead of going in and clicking, you can just turn it on automation so that once you're happy with it, just you receive information from Amazon and eBay, gets processed, gets sent on to Xero.
Yeah.
So then we don't really hear from customers much after that. So we try and deliver the best support we can up front to make sure that it's an easy journey from then on. Good to know that we're doing that.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much. Oh, well, thank you very much for your time today, Steve. It's been really nice to talk to you and to learn a little bit more about your business and your experience with Think My Books. So if anyone wants to maybe get in touch with you about advice about selling the business, is that something you'd be open to doing?
Yeah, we'll drop my email in the no problem at all.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sounds good. Cool. Right. Okay. Well, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. Cheers. Dan. Bye.